Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Brazilian jazz musician Felipe Salles. We caught up with him on April 3, 2020 during the quarantine lockdown to talk about his 8th and most ambitious album to date, a 2-CD DVD set featuring video documentary and original music for large jazz ensemble. It came out right in the midst of the quarantine, March 20, 2020, via Tapestry Records, and it's called The New Immigrant Experience, very appropriate for these days. He emigrated from Brazil to the United States in 1995, and this project premiered back in April 2019 at performances in New York City and Massachusetts. Then it was recorded in the studio. The recording was then recombined with live video excerpts, giving a full voice to immigrant groups in the United States today. He's got great stories and insights. Dig it.
How's everything going?
Everything is good. I mean, we're home, safe, healthy, all the...
Good deal.
How about you? Everything?
Well, yeah, we're holding in there. Yeah. Just weathering the storm and, being hopeful.
Yeah. Same here.
About all you can do. So,
yeah.
Well, hey, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it. So let's talk about the New Immigrant Experience. Talk to me. It's pretty evident what you were going for with this, but just in your own words, talk to me a little bit about how this project came about and how good it feels that it's completed and out in the world for people to enjoy.
Well, I'll tell you, it feels good. It was a long 2 years of incredible hard work. I don't think I have worked so hard in my life as I did in this project in the last 2 years. And I remember when I was putting the proposal together, and I showed it to my wife. She's a musician and she's a very smart person, and I always kind of use her as a soundboard to what I'm thinking and things like that. And she looked at it and she said, "Be careful what you wish for." So, I had no idea how complicated and monumental this was going to be when I started. But I'm so glad that it's done and it's out in the world, as you said. And it feels to me like a small contribution I can give to basically giving voice to people who need a voice, but also trying to, as an artist, contribute to the betterment of society. I think that a lot of the times we don't feel like we can actually do anything as artists. Like I was feeling pretty despaired in the last few years with all the things that were happening and the situation, especially treatment towards immigrants, like myself. And I felt like a little bit like I was, as a jazz musician, not able to contribute, help the situation. But then, one day you have an idea, and that idea seems to be something that actually could be a contribution. And so I have a friend, an old friend, Teresa Lee, who I met back in New York when I lived in New York. And we went to Manhattan School of Music at the same time, and she was at the time dating a friend of mine. And through him, he asked me to help her look into how to renew her Brazilian passport. And I said, what do you mean Brazilian passport? She's not Brazilian. Is she American? Is she Korean? Because I knew she was of Korean descent. And he said, no, it's a much more complicated story, and we met and she told me her story. And, actually it turns out that she was the original dreamer, the person who wrote to Dick Durbin and asked him to do something about the situation of people that we know today as dreamers. And even as an immigrant, I had no idea of that or what was happening, and it shocked me. I was really taken by her story, And I guess when this whole situation started unraveling with the possible government rescinding DACA and everything, I started thinking about her again. And I guess this idea came to me as I was taking a bike ride. Sometimes bike rides really help me think, and so that was one of those moments.
Wonderful. So talk to me a little bit about your background, where you were born and raised, and how jazz became a part of your life.
Well, I was born in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, Brazil. My family is from Sao Paulo. My mom's family is from Rio, so I grew up in that sort of, visiting in Rio, living in Sao Paulo. My father has always listened to a lot of music at home, and he's always been really drawn to Brazilian music and jazz. So I kind of grew up listening to that. He has a lot of friends who are musicians, and I also grew up with a lot of my childhood friends who turned out to be musicians. So around high school time, I was reconnecting with a bunch of friends from childhood, and they had a band together, and I was trying to figure out how to fit in the crowd and be part of the band, and pretty much every instrument was taken at that point. And one of my friends, who's actually now a very world famous jazz guitarist, Chico Pinheiro, who I grew up with, like, this is my oldest friend. He had this incredible idea of suggesting that I would look into a saxophone. And I guess that's how it all started. So I fell in love with the instrument, and I kind of discovered my dad's musical library, and then Chico and I used to go to my dad's house in the afternoon and listen to a lot of music and record a lot of tapes. Back then you put the records on and put the tapes in the tape deck and the whole thing, So that's how it kind of started. And funny enough, I got so serious about it, I ended up, going to university in Brazil for a music degree, and then moved here for my master's, and I ended up met my wife, then we moved to New York. I ended up going back to school and doing a doctorate at Manhattan School of Music, did my master's at New England Conservatory, and then ended up following the path of, an academic career / performance, composition, all that stuff that people are doing nowadays,
Yeah, without a doubt. So, what was your trip to America like? When you finally got here and you got, especially, in such a big scene, what was that like? Was it culture shock? Did it feel natural? What was that experience like?
That's a great question, because the thing is, I was preparing myself to come here for many years. I had this idea since I was 14 years old. I fell in love with the saxophone and love with jazz and things like that. And this was the ultimate goal of my life, was to come here, to become, part of this scene. But obviously that's just something you put in your head, and you kind of, you have this idealistic way of looking at things, right? When you actually get here, it's a whole different story. So I got to New England Conservatory when I was like 22, and it was rough at first, especially with the language part. Like, my English wasn't that great, was good enough to pass the exams that you have to take in order to be in school, but it's a whole other to be constantly, material, talking to people. So it took me a few years to really get the hang of it. I've always looked at things with a very positive way, but at times when you are when you're like the foreigner, or you're not getting the jokes, or you're not communicating well with people or anything like that, is why I moved here. As much as today I cannot imagine myself going back to Brazil to live there. It's been more years that I lived here in the years that I lived there, so it's kind of crazy, Now I'm an American citizen and all that stuff, so.
Right on.
But, to answer your question very quickly, it's always a rough patch to assimilate the culture and the language and everything. It's always worth it if that's what you want,
Yeah. So what do you like best about being a professional musician?
It's kind of I like a lot of things. I honestly cannot see myself doing anything else, and that's, I think you should do this. If you don't see yourself, imagine yourself doing anything else, you'd rather do this, because it's a hard job. It's complicated. You're always fighting for trying to convince people that this is actually important, that this is actually something as important as, say, medicine or business or whatever. It's a complicated situation to be in, but I just, I can't see myself out of playing an instrument or writing music, communicating with people that way, and teaching is also a big part of what I love doing. But I think that there's something really special about being able to express yourself in a way that is so uniquely, if you stop to think about music is nowhere, it's frequencies in the air, the moment they come out of your instrument or your record player or whatever it is that you use, they're gone, they're in the moment, they're present. Of course, you can record it and listen to it again, but every experience of listening is different, so it's quite a unique and not very concrete thing to do, you know what I'm saying? And I love that part of it. It's kind of, it's a Plato, and I don't want to get too intellectual on this, but there's a moment at the end of the cave allegory where Plato talks about the kinds of activities there, like in a higher level of human, ascension, and one of them is music, and the other one is mathematics and philosophy. So there's this world of ideas, or world of very kind of like abstract things that one can do. And I like the idea of doing something so abstract, but at the same time something that is so unique and touches people in different ways. Everybody's touched by music in its own personal way. You basically project the things that you identify with. And I play and write mostly instrumental music, so there's that element to it too. So it's kind of like this whole idea of that Plato talks about, which is like music, mathematics, and philosophy are all like living in this world of ideas, a very abstract concept. I like that idea, but I like the fact that music actually touches people in an emotional way this time.
So let me ask you this. We're in the middle of an entire shutdown of the world. There's no music going on. And my question is, when we get back to it, there's live music, what do you hope the audience and even the musician gets from this experience that enhances the way they see things when they come back?
Well, I think one of the things that my friends who are in this fight about, immigrant rights always talk about is that it's really easy to dismiss people and dismiss important issues when you just don't put a face or a name to the issue, and the fact that you just put people in a box and say, "Oh, this has nothing to do with me," And one of the reasons I did this project, and I interview people, and as you have this multimedia experience, you're listening to the music live, and you're watching like people's faces and their stories. The idea behind that is that you cannot avoid putting a face to the name, a face to the project, to the problem, you know? And the other part of it is that I think music can bring a side to any issue that is a little bit different from you know, say, the news or even, you know, you know, social studies or anything like that, which sometimes people shut down when they get the overly technical explanation of the issues, whatever it is, you know. But I feel like we have the opportunity with music, with a project like this, I have the opportunity to grab people by their heart first, you know, by their emotions, and then really bring out this part of people that I think those issues need to bring out, which is the compassion, the emotion, and putting themselves in the place of somebody who is having an issue that is not necessarily their issue, but they should be empathizing with.
That's a great answer. Hey, thank you for taking a minute out today to talk about this very important project and about this very extraordinary circumstance we have in our world that we've never seen and hopefully we will never see again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Brazil, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Felipe for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.